Welcome to Dodgers Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. We have a very, very, very special guest today. Pitching coach in the Dodgers organization, Sean Coyne, joins Dodgers Daily. So, Sean, hey, thank you so much. I've been following you quite a bit. I had a chance to talk to Doolan and DA, obviously, and guys like that. Have never had a chance to talk to you, so super excited.
Yep, excited to be here. Seeing some other coaches get the chance to sit down and talk with you once you reached out, I was pretty stoked to get to talk about some of the guys. So looking forward to it. Okay,
cool. The first thing about you that was really cool for me, lots of connections. Rob Hill, you were connected with him both at Driveline, then at Westmont, and then also had a chance to talk to Simon Reid. What a wonderful young man, a wonderful young catcher in the system. His brother, Bailey Reid, they both went to Westmont, same as you and Rob. That's a really cool connection, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. It's baseball is a small world. So to have this many connections in an organization like the Dodgers is pretty sweet to kind of, keep fostering those relationships and friendships kind of into the pro ball world.
Were you there the night that Bailey got to throw to his younger brother, Simon, and he was like 94 and the lights were getting dim and you could barely see it? Do you remember that night at all at Westmont?
No, so Bailey was a year younger than me at Westmont. So when he was a senior, that was Simon's freshman year. So that was the year after I graduated.
Okay.
But I did see the videos of out at Russ Carr. Those games are not fun to hit in if you're out there when the sun goes down. So I can imagine that was a tough task for whoever was facing Bay that day.
So I'm guessing your connection with the Dodgers would be through Driveline, Rob Hill, and all of that, both of you together?
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty sure Rob's first year was end of 2019, first full season was 2020. And Rob and I almost traded places because I just graduated, was doing some stuff back home in San Diego, just kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then he threw out the idea to me about working at Driveline and applying for it. So once I got accepted, or I guess offered kind of the internship, was right as Rob was leaving to go off to spring training for the Dodgers for his first year. So we kind of swapped almost. He left, I kind of filled in. And then, about 18 months or so later was when he asked me if I had any interest in going to pro ball. And then, kicked the tires on that, went through the whole interview process with the Dodgers and going on my third year now. So somehow we're already this far in. So it was kind of a crazy roller coaster build up to that. But yeah, no, Rob and I have been connected for quite some time.
Okay, let's dive right into this last year's Rancho pitching staff and then also the catchers. The catchers were just simply phenomenal. I know as a pitching coach, it's really cool because they, the catchers get crossover, so you get to work with the catchers. Thayron Liranzo, I know he popped a sub-1.8 in a game. And then Simon Reid, we talked about him, Jorge Puerta, and then Jesus Glees. So first of all, from a pitching coach perspective, before we get into the pitchers, talk about the incredible catchers you had to work with.
Yeah, I had the fortune of being with Leary and Glees my first year in Arizona. So having them a second year in a row, their first full season affiliate, my first full season affiliate, it was good to have that familiarity with them. Seeing them on an everyday basis, you kind of get numb to how talented they are. But I think one of the really, really cool things about both of them this year, just with how young they are, they're still learning the position. They're still learning how to, manage, a 17, 18 man pitching staff while getting better at the things that they need to do and their aspirations to go be big leaguers. But really watching them develop kind of the mental side of catching this year, just trying to be with them, let them go hit, let them do what they do best. But when that at bat is over, good, bad, or indifferent, it's hey, now we gotta flip to the other side of your position. We gotta talk. We gotta, get right for the guy that's 60 feet in front of you. And the strides that both of them made this year were incredible compared to what they were their first season stateside. It was really great to see Liranzo take ownership at the end of the year, making the game planning meetings himself, practicing his English, trying to get better at communicating with the American pitchers and the American pitchers doing the same to him. It was just a really, really cool kind of progression to watch them over the year. And same with, when we got Simon a chunk of the way through the year, being with him before or when I went back to Westmont, having that familiarity with him, just kind of getting him up to speed at what affiliate game calling looks like. He has experience. It's just kind of now applying it in the right ways. And Puerta was a dog back there. He would go few and far between days, but when we put Puerta back there, we didn't miss a beat. He took really great pride in taking care of the pitchers, wanting to know the comfort spots, the comfort counts, what do I need to do to keep them on the right track? Because he didn't want to make it look like this glaring hole just because Liranzo wasn't catching that day. So all four of them did a really, really good job. Obviously, you have your bumps and bruises with young catchers, but those are the times where, they get to learn, they get to develop, and us on the pitching side get to be there a little bit with them, which is always sweet.
Do you have translators, or is it up to you as a pitching coach to learn how to communicate with these guys that don't maybe speak as much English as some others, or how does that work?
I've been practicing and trying to rekindle high school Spanish ever since I got hired. And it's gotten a lot easier over the years just being around them because, it's not your textbook Spanish. But kind of getting to learn, how they best hear information, especially from someone that's a little bit of broken Spanish. If it's something really, really important and I feel like I need it to be translated, I can always go to Tronky, Rancho last year, or Jesus Galiz speaks basically perfect English. So it's you can kind of work through them, keep them together. You just kind of got to problem solve a little bit. Most of the time I can get it done. But if I ever need help, I got guys around me that can help facilitate that. You mentioned Tronky, and when you say Tronky, you're talking about Ramon Troncoso. Really cool. I actually was there the night. Corey Seager was playing third base for AAA Oklahoma City. 15-inning game, and Tronky came in and got the save. You ever talk to him about that? Does he ever mention that game? I don't remember that game specifically, but we talk about some of the experiences that he had, throughout pro ball, especially we talk about his big league, career and trajectory and the things that he had to go through being a bullpen guy, which is always super valuable to me because those are experiences that I'm never going to have. But they're valuable to hear the thought process and what it was like being in those moments when your name gets called on the phone for the first time and trying to be able to help communicate that to young guys coming up through the system, because that's something that I'm not going to be able to tell them from personal experience, but I can pick the valuable lessons from it and help communicate it, which is always nice.
All right, the first pitchers I wanted to talk about, I call them the 100 Club, the guys that are 100 plus. They have lightning bolts for an arm. So before we actually get into them, just kind of looking at their names, Payton Martin, then Madison Jeffrey, Reynaldo Yean, who are all just absolutely electric. Two of them are East Coast guys, and another one's an international prospect. You're a guy from the San Diego area. You graduated from St. Augustine High School. So as a guy that's from the area, when you have guys like Payton that have never really been out to California before, right? Mm-hmm. Do you kind of take them under your wing and kind of show them the ropes of California?
I try and give them little bits and pieces of places to go, things that are kind of known in California. But in terms of taking them out places, I try and make sure that the players do that together. The guys that they're with on the team, just so they can kind of foster that relationships with each other, and go do their thing, not have to worry about anything. But if they always ask for recommendations, I'll throw things out, kind of what's in the area. But it's definitely, making sure guys are acclimated to changing sides of the country as best as we can, whether that's in the stadium or out of the stadium.
Let's get into the three guys that I want to talk about first. Payton Martin, I've had a chance to talk to him a couple of times. What a rock star that young man is going to be. Madison Jeffrey, and boy, the end of the season that Madison Jeffrey had, I've said for many times, it's up to him. If Madison Jeffrey throws strikes, watch out. This dude is going to be in the major leagues. And Reynaldo Yean, who, you kind of have to follow the organization a little bit to know who he was coming into last year. Probably not leaving last year because that dude has a lightning bolt. So talk about those three.
100%. Payton, obviously, unfortunately, season got shut down a little bit earlier than we were all anticipating. But Payton's, lightning bolt of a kid, bubbly personality, super outgoing, never have any problems talking to Payton.
Makes a hell of an omelet, by the way, if you're ever hungry.
Oh, I'm going to have to take him up on that this year. I'll push him to make me something to bring it to spring training one of the days. But Payton is, very driven, obviously very talented. Obviously, we as an organization were really fortunate to kind of get him into our system and get him under our wing. But his first season at an affiliate was just, wide-eyed, trying to fill in the blanks, while also going out and performing at like an extremely high level. So Tronky and I just kind of took it upon ourselves, like, how can we make this transition from, high school ball in Clemens, North Carolina to, Saturday night games at Lone Mart Field with, with a couple thousand people in the stands, with the Dodger logo on the side of your jersey. Just trying to make that transition for him as easy as possible. Just put him in the right spot, give him the right information to go do what he does best. Try and keep him as free and athletic as possible, because he's an insane athlete and we don't ever want him to lose that. And the more he can tap into it, the better he's going to be. And we're pretty excited for his 2024 season, getting him back out in a uniform, getting him back out on the mound. But Payton is a big treat to work with, like through and through, day-to-day basis, on start day. He's something else in a good way.
No doubt about it. Madison Jeffrey, a young man out of the university. Actually, I don't want to say that. West Virginia University. Don't make that mistake, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I've made that mistake before. They're in the Big 12 with Oklahoma State, and that was a bad mistake to make. So West Virginia University, this guy, I'm telling you, man, he's mastering the strike zone. He's mastering just kind of the consistency of repeating everything over and over and over to get in the strike zone, but when he is, man, you talk about a guy that is just absolutely dominant. That slider is what he calls sick. It's dirty, whatever you want to call it, to go at the 100-mile-an-hour. So talk about Madison Jeffrey.
Yeah. MJ and I got pretty close last year. Just, him popping into the office, asking really, really good, consistent, constant questions. Like, the kid wants it. You're never going to take it away from him. He wants to be there. He knows he can be better. And like you had mentioned, I mean, we tell MJ all the time, like, dude, if we put you in the strike zone, like, I feel like I can send you 45 minutes up the freeway.
Yeah. No doubt. Right now.
It's not going to get, right now. Like, but we're not going to hand it to you. Like, we got to keep working. Here's how we're going to do it. And I mean, you see flashes of it where, Tronky and I'll send him out for the 9th inning, and we see the first 2 pitches and we're like, okay, we're going to be out of here in about 3 minutes. And it's just really, tapping into what happens on those good days, what's going on in the delivery, what's going on from a mental standpoint. Like, how can we tap into that more often? Because he has a chance and he has the stuff to be very, very impactful throughout our system. And it's just trying to get him to do it more often. That's really all it is.
Yep. And it's a big responsibility when a guy has that kind of ability, and it's all up to them, right?
Yep. And that's the thing where, talking with MJ this year, it's like, we want to be there and assist him along the way, whether it's, me and Tronky and Rancho, David and De Los Santos and Great Lakes, Denick and Durham and Tulsa. Like, we're all going to be there for him along this journey. But, like, at the end of the day, like, I can't stand next to you out on the mound. Like,
sure,
it's you, right? Like, go take it, go do it. And I mean, I have a feeling he's taken some really good strides this offseason. I'm really excited to see him in spring training this year, but he's got everything in the world. Now it's just, keep doing it and keep doing it on a night-to-night basis.
And he has momentum with the way that he ended last year, so that's super
100%.
Exciting too.
100%.
Okay, Reynaldo Yean, he's actually a young man. I had to reach out at the beginning. I'm like, hey, is this guy throwing 101-mile-an-hour two-seam? I mean, because the ball has so much movement to his arm side. It's kind of like Emmett Sheehan. I used to get a kick out of when he first came up to major leagues. They kept asking about his two-seam, and he kept saying, guys, I don't have a two-seam. It's a four-seam. It just moves a lot. That's kind of Reynaldo Yean. This guy, I'm telling you, man, the first time I saw him, it was like, oh, my God, look at this guy pitch. I mean, he is that explosive.
Yeah, Yean is a treat to watch live in person from the dugout. I'd heard about him in Arizona. I knew about him last year in the DSL. I was asking, some of our coordinators, like, hey, when are we going to get this dude throwing 100 up to the ACL team? Like, it'd be nice to have, just kind of joking with him. But then we got him this year in Rancho, and it just, I mean, the first time you see him, you watch a fastball come out of his hand, it's different. Like, it pops, it explodes, plays really well at the top of the zone. He's kind of tinkering and mastering that slider, just making sure he can put it in zone, kind of in the mid counts, and still put it in good situations and the advantage counts to do what he does best and put hitters away. last year, I think for him was a very good experience. It wasn't always pretty, but it taught him a lot of valuable lessons kind of heading into, all right, this is now what I need to do in the second go around. This is how I need to prepare to go just be successful on a nightly basis. Cause he's kind of like MJ. He's got everything in the world to just go annihilate hitters every time he steps the rubber. And it's now just kind of like learning those day-to-day, month-to-month developments of pro ball. Like, how do I string these things together to keep myself, one step closer to the big leagues?
One thing that I tell people that is very underrated when they evaluate people, like Nick Frasso, he can dunk. River Ryan, he can dunk. Great athlete. Ryan Pepio last year, the adjustments he made were to his body. He became more athletic. I really feel like that helped him access the strike zone better. So I'm kind of segueing to a guy, Chris Campos. He was a shortstop there in college at St. Mary's. Actually, him and Hobbsy were on the same team there as Hobbsy was closing the all-time saves leader at St. Mary's. I'm super excited about Chris Campos with that right arm because he is super, super athletic, and I would have to imagine he's just learning the ropes as far as how to become a professional pitcher. So you're kind of getting to teach him from the very beginning. And then Gabe Emmett, he has a lot of movement on his ball. He had a lot of moments this year that he was really dominant. And the Roque Gutierrez, talk about those three.
Yeah, so CC is a very, very good athlete. You see the middle infielder in him when he's pitching, and that is a good thing. And what we're trying to make sure like maintains in his delivery, his development, how he handles his body on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, like a little bit smaller of a guy, but like that hasn't stopped him yet. A lot of the conversations this year was just how do we keep maintaining this twitchy, super athletic delivery that like outputs the best version of your stuff. And then just honing in, like, when do we use it? How do we use it to the best of your ability? And then let's go pitch. Cause that's when the lights get bright, like that's when you see the dog come out in Campos.
Oh, no doubt.
The playoff game against Inland Empire, I think might've been the best version I've ever seen of CC.
If he could pitch the ball and then run to shortstop and then have them hit the ball to him at shortstop and then him throw it to first, he would prefer that, wouldn't he?
He would do it. I think he would give anything to keep nudging me about getting a little ground ball session or a couple innings out of short if he could. But that one's not up to me. So I'm going to keep him on the mound if it's up to me.
Okay, Gabe Emmett, he had really, especially in the middle of the year, Gabe Emmett was for about a month or two, nobody was hitting Gabe Emmett that good. Kind of tail to the arm side out of JUCO. So a really good pitcher, so talk about him.
Yeah, Gabe was one of the first guys I actually got pretty close with when I got hired with the Dodgers. He was out in Arizona right when I moved out here. Kind of got to know him and talk to him a ton. So having him this year was, pretty sick, like full circle moment, kind of just seeing him my first year and then now being his coach. But Gabe with the sinker slider combo, he's got the splitter in his back pocket, but he didn't really use it that much this year. But yeah, that month stretch, I think he won pitcher of the month in June.
Yes.
And like kind of carried it over a little bit into July. Gabe, when he's on and his throw is right, it's not a comfortable at bat.
He seems unique because he seems more east and west than a lot of the guys that we see in this organization.
Yeah, absolutely. We try and tap in. He's a really, really good rotator, kind of east-west, and it matches the two planes of his pitches. Just trying to get him to, sometimes we fluctuate usage, and he had a really, really good feel for the slider in the middle of the year, and we kind of cranked the usage up on it, and it just tied hitters in knots because for a while, he was throwing like 70% sinkers when he was coming out of the bullpen. And then when he moved kind of in that starter role for us in the middle of the year, we kind of like flipped the script on people a little bit. So when he'd run the 94-mile-an-hour sinker into guys, it'd feel like 98 because he's just kind of landing the slider, really executing it to the glove side third of the plate, forcing weak contact on the ground, which is what he does best. And I think kind of like after that portion of like really, really high success, some of the things that he was doing, we just kind of like lost it a little bit, like controlling the counts, being able to like put that pitch in zone, which allowed him to be in the leverage situations to force weak contact. And we just got away from it a little bit towards the end of the year. But Gabe definitely has the components to, like some of our big league arms that are a little bit more like east-west that just force contact and get it to Evan Phillips in the back end of the game. Yeah. Like keep things moving, keep the ball in the yard. His combo with that sinker slider is definitely deadly for minor league hitters to handle.
Talk about Roque Gutierrez.
Yeah, Roque is one of my favorites. Had him in Arizona last year. Got to see him come up to Rancho in the middle of the year. That kid just wants to pitch, man. He just wants to go out. He'll pitch every day if you want him to. And this year we saw an uptick in velo once we kind of made him a starter because we kind of had to out of necessity.
What did he hit velo-wise?
I think he got up to 95 at Stockton.
I was thinking 96, somewhere near, yeah.
Yeah, it was 95 or 96 at Stockton kind of at the end of the year. But, Roque last year was anywhere from like 90 to 93 with like touch of 4 every once in a while. And then all of a sudden this year he just started like sitting 93, 94 in some of his starts. And we were kind of like, whoa, like this is a different version of Roque that we haven't seen. But the guy takes complete ownership of like his prep, his pregame meetings, knows exactly what he wants to do, can access the zone pretty frequently with multiple pitches, can kind of pitch backwards, move the ball around, which is always, in low A, if you can do a lot of those things, you're going to be pretty successful. So Roque, he played winter ball again this year. I think he learned some valuable lessons last year when he played winter ball that kind of helped him when he came back stateside for the affiliate season. So I'm really excited to see Roque coming into spring training again. No
doubt about it. One of those guys that just really knows how to pitch. He's really fun, kind of crafty and masterful from that perspective. Okay, 2 guys that I really feel like maybe made the biggest jumps of any pitchers at any level in the organization last year. There were some that made some big ones, but none of them I don't think were any bigger than Jared Karros and Peter Heubeck, man. Those 2 guys really took big jumps, especially towards the end of last year. I know you lost them to Great Lakes, and they continued that momentum, but boy, they were really good, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they that was definitely some of the most fun days throughout the year, watching those 2 go out and take them out on start days. Obviously Pete in his second year, second stint in Rancho, just kind of further adapting who he is as a pro pitcher and who he wants to be when he's out on the mound, I think was the biggest kind of growth for Pete this year. We had a huge hour and a half, 2-hour talk one day in Modesto in the middle of the year. He felt like he had the pieces, but like wasn't putting it together. Just basically kind of like a sit down, like, can we come up with a concrete plan and figure this out? Because I'm better than what I'm doing right now. And pretty much ever since that day, that's kind of when Pete exploded. Ran into the All-Star break with his first 5-inning shutout appearance at, San Jose the week we clinched the first half. Pete has some electric stuff. He's ironing out the delivery, continuing to access the strike zone. The added slider for him was just a really big piece this year. So he didn't really have to rely on solely going north-south with the heater and the curveball. Just kind of adding in that wrinkle to the glove side half of the plate, to help him control the mid counts and keep him in leverage to do what he does best and make the ball go up and down. But Pete this year was, it was sad to see him go because I love spending time with Pete and talking pitching with Pete. But I think that was one that was a very rewarding feeling as a coach watching Pete go to Great Lakes, because he went through a lot this year, and like seeing that smile when we told him he has a flight. Instead of a bus ride to Fresno, he's got a flight to Fort Wayne, Indiana. That was definitely one of the moments I won't forget from this last year.
And it's July, so it's not 12 degrees in Fort Wayne.
Exactly.
Jared Karros, I tell you what, man, his big, tall frame, the way the ball comes straight downhill, it seems like, his ability to throw a million different pitches, it seems like, boy, he really took off, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. JK was an absolute treat this year, man. He coming in right out of the gate, just kind of almost letting him do his thing at the front end of the year, because it was like, we don't really know. He took some hard contact in spring training. We're like, okay, like what can we do with Karros? Like, how can we, keep him missing bats, accessing the zone? Let's just kind of see him go pitch. Like, let's watch him a few times in Rancho, and like, we'll kind of build the plan from there, at least like from my perspective. And then he goes out in game 1, and it's like playing a video game, man, with him. Like, making a game plan for Jared Karros for me is like playing MLB The Show, because it's like, what do I want him to do? Yes. And then I'm just going to tell him, and he's going to go do it. Being able to locate the fastball in all 4 quadrants, move the ball up, move the ball in, move it out, land the breaking balls for strikes. Obviously, when that changeup's on, keeps guys with the front to back component. It's something else that I wasn't really prepared for in Rancho last year with like the guys that we had. And then all of a sudden you threw Karros out there, and it's like, oh, I'm basically playing a video game now. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to tell him what to do, and I'm going to watch him do it, and it's going to work. But dude, his mentality, you can tell, obviously he's been around pro ball. He's got the mentality. He's got it dialed. He knows what he needs to do on a day-to-day basis. And it was no surprise to me that he got promoted to Great Lakes. It was just, is it going to happen or not? Is there going to be a spot up there for him, or is he just going to kind of ram his way there? And then he didn't miss a beat, man. He goes up there and just keeps it rolling. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's kind of Karros' MO throughout the entire system. Like, he's going to go kind of figure some things out, adjust a little bit, and it's just going to take off. Yeah, no doubt. Of course, he used to be a hitter. It seems to me like, even with guys like Chris Campos, who, they get into professional ball and you move into pitcher only, sometimes it maybe helps to remind them that hitting is very hard and that you don't have to be perfect all the time. Oh, yeah. We I can't tell you how many times Trunky and I brought that up, that I think as the Rancho and Low A, we either had the highest or the second highest, like average fastball velo as a team, like one of the top 5 strikeout rates on in all of Low A. And it was just like, guys, we have the stuff. Hitting is really hard. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. It's very, very challenging. Like, you guys all have the stuff or you wouldn't be here. Just let it go. We're trying to get to these areas of the zone to make sure we're in a good spot, but you're going to be just fine. I promise. One of the most deceptive pitchers in the organization. And I tell you what, he has kick ass in him. I mean, you watch this guy, he's like a bull in a china shop. And it seems like the ball's coming out of his hand like 200 miles an hour. Then it registers like 95, 96. And I'm like, how in the world is that not 100 miles? It just looks different to me. Yoel Ibarra, man, that guy, I love watching him pitch. He just comes right at hitters. Yeah, Ibarra, there's a lot, for a shorter guy, there's a lot of limbs coming at you when Ibarra. Yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? Yeah. There's a lot of limbs. But, he gets down the mound. He's got good extension coming out front with his heater. Obviously, he's got the big sweeping slider, kind of the wipeout changeup when he's able to land it in zone. But I think the one that I don't know if a lot of people talk about that for him is kind of like one of the bigger pieces is his cutter. That was kind of the comfort pitch for him where it was like, I'm, 2-0 to a really talented left-handed
Was that new
hitter.
Last year, or does he always had the cutter?
He had it in 2022. He just didn't use it very much.
Okay.
Because we kind of wanted to hone in on the heater and slider, make sure that those two pitches are kind of like anchors for him. Had really high levels of comfort, could access the fastball in zone before he went to Rancho last year. And that's really when the cutter kind of started coming back into the fold of helping him create weak contact and hitter advantage counts. Cause it's a really, really good pitch. Yes. And it's one that he has a lot of comfort in and a lot of confidence in. So it's ever hey, Ibarra, if we're, in a 2-0, 2-1 count, we got a, big hitter at the plate. It's not one that we want to try and just shove heaters by him. We know you can do it. But we could just end the at-bat with this cutter in 2-1 and call it a day and move to the next guy. So that was definitely a big development for him this year. Just using that, deploying it in the right spots, and just letting hitters take care of the rest. You're lefty, you're just going to ground out to second. I'm going to move on to the next guy. Michael Grove, Gavin Stone, they all incorporated cutters last year, and it was game changers for them. It just kind of goes to remind you that if you can move the ball a little bit, get the ball to move a little bit while it is still a strike, that's a very effective pitch. Absolutely. Absolutely. The cutter, to me, a lot of guys can benefit from it. And Ibarra falls right in that bucket. You have the big explosive stuff. We know you can miss bats, but it's also hard for hitters to put those pitches in play because of how good they are. So you have to have 3 of them, right? Yeah. It's because of how good they are, it's kind of tough for them to hit it every time. So the cutter just adds in a new dimension, a new area of the zone that they can access with that pitch. That's still very, very good because obviously the guys that you mentioned have pretty talented arms. Yeah. But it's just another wrinkle that they can throw in to keep hitters off balance. One guy that I'm super excited about, and he is super confident, had a chance to talk to him, just a wonderful young man, Noah Ruen, and really cool because he's a sidearm guy, so he provides a lot of uniqueness. 100%. Noah got to us shortly after the draft. I think this was the first or second sidearm guy that I had had as, direct being able to work with. So really it was just asking him a lot of questions just because, it's hey, I haven't worked with a lot of guys that throw like you before. I want to pick your brain and kind of hear how you think about your throw, what you think is important, the things that you like to do on a day-to-day basis. And then we'll kind of, Trunky and I, with our creative minds, will try and help, build things around it to kind of build the engine and get your floor a little bit higher. But Noah added a different wrinkle in our bullpen last year at the end of the year, which was crucial for us kind of coming down the stretch into the playoffs. But he's a classic, college reliever. Will be ready to go Friday, Saturday, Sunday if you let him. And he took that mentality right into pro ball and kind of benefited him. Had a little bit of a rocky start the first couple outings, just kind of like getting his feet wet. But once he settled in, dude, he took off right away. It was really, really cool to see.
He wants to be really good at baseball, no doubt about it, but he really, really, really wants to be good at golf, doesn't he?
Yeah, we had a few guys last year that like to try and get out on the links on our off days on Mondays. So,
okay, if there's ever a team brawl for Rancho Cucamonga, I know the two guys that I am looking up first. That would be Liam Doolan and Livan Reinoso. And believe it or not, both teammates back at Tennessee Wesleyan, both teammates last year on Rancho. So talk about those two guys. Of course, Liam is from the Down Under. Had a chance to talk to him. Really cool guy.
Yeah, no, the Reno and Doolan last year were two peas in a pod, man. When they got together, they were throwing partners every day, just talking about each other's pitch, their deliveries, their pitches with each other, just kind of picking each other's brain back and forth. I mean, if you found Reinoso last year, you saw Doolan because they were two peas in a pod. But yeah, if things ever got hairy out in Rancho, I think I would just go behind them and then let them do their thing before I started pulling people out of the pile before things went south.
Okay, some guys, Kelvin Bautista, Jonathan Edwards, who had stretches, a couple of stretches last year. We started to show some promise to get the ball in the strike zone. Kelvin Ramirez and Jason Cabrera. Talk about those guys.
Yeah, I think I'll start with Kelvin Ramirez just because I think he finished the year probably the hottest out of that bunch. I think he had a 2-month stretch where he had a sub 1.5 ERA and like 40 innings. Like the things he can do to the baseball, he's got the ride cut fastball and kind of almost that like vertical moving slider that still goes left to right or right to left. And he just, once he kind of got settled in Rancho, you could see the confidence start to grow that he could do this on a day-to-day basis. And he became probably one of our most reliable relievers heading into the playoffs. Highest leverage situations, great kid, works extremely hard, just wants to be good. Like almost everyone that we have in our system, but sure. Kelvin, watching him grow from when he first showed up to the end of the year was probably the biggest change in terms of like a 1-year development out of our bullpen guys, which was pretty exciting.
No doubt about that. Okay, so Jonathan Edwards, big toolsy guy out of Georgia Southern. And, when he's in the strike zone, again, he is very, very good.
Yeah, Big John took some big strides this year. I think he got up to around 40 innings last year, 45, kind of in that realm. Which compared to what he did in 2022, I think he was at like 12. So in terms of like workload increase, getting him out there and getting mound touches and mound experience was huge. We kind of brought back the windup delivery for him. He had mentioned that at Georgia Southern, he went out of the windup every once in a while. And we just kind of threw it out like, do you want to do it again? And we'll kind of see what happens. And I think that was the beginning of the stretch where John really took off to the guy we're like, okay, this is who we thought, John Edwards could be, just obliterating the zone with his heater, like really leaning on the slider and just kind of like mixing in the curveball when we needed to. But dude, when his fastball's right, man, it nukes people at the top of the zone, can get missed through the middle, really can force contact with the slider. And that's when John's at his best, is when he just kind of lets his stuff, do what it's kind of built to do, and know that he's talented enough that he doesn't have to do anything more or anything less when he goes out on the mound. But in terms of where he was in 2022 to 2023, he took a huge, huge jump. Yep,
and he's such a good dude. He's just, you root for him, don't you?
100%. And he's the guy that, he could punch out the side in the 7th inning, or he could walk 2 guys and have to get pulled, and he's still the dude on the top step, like rooting for his teammates to get the job done. Like he wants the guys around him to be good. He wants to be a part of their success, and like he's just a really, really good locker room guy to have guys around. He's always a good personality to have, good, bad, or indifferent. So when you watch him go out there, like you want nothing for the best. You want nothing but the best for John.
What a joy this is for me to get to talk to you, Sean, about all these pitchers. This is just so wonderful. I'm sure you aced your just listening to you talk and the way that you're able to describe all this. very impressive. I'm sure you aced your interview when you finally got a chance to talk to the Dodgers. So this is super fun for me. I know I'm taking a lot of your time, but hey, would you mind staying a little bit longer and answering some fun questions?
Absolutely. No, you take all the time you need. I'm good.
Okay, very good. All right, the first one. We talked about Livan Reinoso and also Liam Doolan, two big dudes. I mean, real big dudes. They both went to Tennessee Wesleyan. They would be the guy that I would get behind if a brawl broke out. So I had a chance to actually talk to Liam Doolan. And one thing I want to get done, I've got to have an arm wrestling contest between those two. Okay, if an arm wrestling contest breaks out next year, who's going to win?
I feel like I got to put my money on Reino. I got to put my money on Reinoso. He's scrappy, man.
Yeah.
He's built like a house. I mean, so is Doolan, but I mean, they're both tanks, but I don't know. I think I got to put my money on Reinoso. And I think the first time Doolan's going to see me, he's going to get pissed at me, but
I don't think so. I think you'll agree. And by the way, Payton Martin came in like it was a big moment or whatever, and Livan got out of a big moment, and he came in the dugout, and Payton said he barely nudged me, and I went flying across the dugout.
Yeah. If Reino's hype's coming out of the mound, coming off, which you don't see very often, Reinoso's very even-keeled. If you see him fired up off the mound, just get out of the way. Get out of the way, because he'll move you if you're in the way.
No doubt. Okay, you're from the San Diego area. We mentioned that, the St. Augustine High School. And so what's the coolest thing about being from Southern California and now working for the Dodgers?
I mean, just being from California, it's, you got the great weather every day. Where I grew up, I was like 20, 30 minutes from the beach. San Diego, obviously, from a weather perspective, is just probably one of the nicest cities in America. Really, really fortunate to grow up in that area. But it's pretty funny, full circle, like being hired by the Dodgers. Obviously, growing up in San Diego, I was a Padres fan growing up throughout my whole life. So I was supposed to hate the Dodgers growing up. But I did get to see like how well the organization is run, especially as I got older into college. It's like, okay, well, what makes this team this good? Like, how do they keep doing it? And just kind of like pushing my brain when I figured I wanted to be a coach. So then kind of coming around and being hired by the Dodgers was pretty crazy. It was something I didn't think was ever going to be possible for me. But I'm here 3 years later, and it's been an absolutely surreal experience, kind of growing up in California and now, being with arguably the biggest team in America in professional baseball. It's definitely surreal.
I didn't ask you this earlier, but both you and Rob, you both work for Driveline. Have the Dodgers adopted a lot of Driveline techniques?
I would say a lot of like the implement or like practice of it. Like obviously using the plyo balls with a lot of our pitchers. A lot of like the delivery ideas that Rob and I learned over at Driveline with the biomechanics lab, kind of getting off the ground. A lot of the principles that we learned there definitely have carryover to what we do with the Dodgers. But I think, obviously as we've grown as a pitching department, we've kind of developed a little bit like past that, but we definitely have those kind of in our back pocket that we definitely use on a routine basis.
Okay, for a guy like me, maybe Noah Ruen or Payton Martin, who's on the East Coast, guys like that who have never really spent hardly any time in California, is it everything that everybody always says it is, or is there any overratedness to it, or how's that go?
No, I mean, California is pretty much all it's cracked up to be. I mean, especially in Rancho Cucamonga, when guys get out there, they realize how close they are to the water, and whenever they want to go, the weather's nice. Obviously, it gets a little bit toasty, dry heat in the summer, but if you steer guys in the right direction, like, hey, one time you got to go to downtown Los Angeles. Like, you just got to experience what that feels like, what it looks like, whether they go to a Laker game or a hockey game or whatever. Just kind of get out and see what that looks like. For a lot of guys that are from smaller towns, kind of in the Midwest or the East Coast, it's like pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, like, this is what life is like. And it's like, yeah that's what our big league life is like, downtown Los Angeles. So if you like this, let's keep this thing rolling.
All right. Very good. Okay. We hear it all the time. Is it true that when a pitching coach goes out to the mound, the first thing they always say is, hey, how you feeling?
That I use it. I will. I wouldn't say every time, but that's definitely a sentence that comes out. That's one where, you're just trying to gauge where the guy's at. You learn their quirks, you learn their, little ticks. So usually that question, even if I think 99% of the time I get the answer is I'm good, I'm fine, like leave me alone type deal. But you can tell no matter like body language, how they're doing. Sometimes it's just, I'm going to stand out here for 30 seconds to give you a breather until the umpire comes out. We're just going to stand here and talk about nothing for a little bit just to give you a quick little breather. So
what are some of the triggers that you see that send you out to the mound?
Most of the time it's, at least for guys in Rancho last year, I felt like I could see the situation speeding up on him.
Yeah.
As starters got later into their outing, they know that they might be kind of at the end of their day, and they try and do a little bit too much to like get themselves over the hump and finish the inning, finish their day on a high note. That'll be a time where I kind of go out there and it's like, hey, like, you ain't got to change what you did in the first, second, third, fourth inning. Like, it's the same thing. We're still trying to get 3 outs just to try and slow them back down, kind of give them that last burst of like, you're almost at the finish line. Let's not overdo it to try and get there. Like, keep doing what you're doing. There's some guys that's, they lose feel for a pitch. Just kind of remind them of some things that we may have worked on in the past to kind of like get them to reset, whether it's a focal point, location, whatever. It's kind of just a Rolodex of different things. Some of our older coordinators have told me, like, you'll get the feel for it. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how do you get the feel for it? And then I spent 137 games in Rancho this year. I'm like, I see what you guys mean now. Thank you.
Rolodex. I figured that's a little bit before your time, huh, Coach?
Can use it every once in a while.
All right. Fantastic. Another question for me. I did not put this in the question bank that I sent to you, Coach, but I'm going to go there anyways. I'm going to see how this goes. Okay, you can plead the fifth, too, if you want. All right, Joe Vitrano and Jake Geloff. Do you have an opinion of which one of those two actually hit the ball harder? You can plead the fifth.
Oof. I might have to go with Vitrano. Geloff can piece up the ball, but there were some balls that Vitrano hit this year when he showed up post-draft that it was, whether it was a single up the middle or a homer over the scoreboard in Lone Mart where you blinked and you missed half the ball flight. And it just, you didn't know what happened. Like the 2 homers he hit in the playoff game, I think it was the second one, he hit to the pole side, like lights are going up at Lone Mart, and it just vanishes over the brand new scoreboard we have out there. That might have been one of the hardest balls I've ever seen hit.
When he hits like one of those like 5-degree low line drive or like a ground ball at like 170 miles an hour, you're like, how does anybody field that ball?
It's an absolute rocket. I think his first hit in Rancho might have been like 115 plus, like single up the middle, and you like missed it, and the center fielder like had the ball in his glove. And I don't think Joe was like halfway to first base. And Joe can scoot. Don't let anyone tell you different. Joe can scoot a little bit, so he can pummel the baseball.
Oh, and by the way, I think I did him some injustice here. His dad was NYPD, so there's another one. If you get in a brawl, man, get behind Joe Vitrano, right?
Oh yeah, he'll act like a teddy bear, but if the going gets tough, I'm taking Joe Vitrano over a lot of people.
Okay, last question for me, Coach. You've been a great sport. I have taken a lot of your time, but I'm having a hell of a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie about it. Okay, so Shoemaker, one of the most professional managers you will ever be around. Kind of every time I talk to somebody who's played for him or coached with them, this is the question I like to end with. Have you ever seen him out of uniform?
I have. It doesn't happen often. It does not happen often. But there were a few Monday off days where somehow I stayed at the field longer than Shu did. And that was – he beat me to the park. I'll give him that. I didn't beat him both ways. But when I got there, he was in his uniform. And I think the first time it happened, I was a little bit like surprised because he just kind of popped into our office and he was like, all right, guys, I'm going to head out for the day. And I'm like, sure, you don't leave in your uniform? Like, I just figured you changed at the hotel or wherever you're staying. Taking me back a little bit here.
Yeah. Is there anybody that could the Dodgers possibly have a better person in that spot than him? I mean, he's perfect, isn't he?
For Rancho, I don't know if there's anyone better than Shu. Just the way he communicates with players, the way that he, teaches them how to play the game the right way, how to kind of adapt to full season, leading the younger group of our system, kind of ushering them into their kind of first ascent throughout our system. Like, he makes sure that the guys learn the right habits, learn the right techniques, how to do things the right way, how to do it the Dodger way. So all
the way down to how to dress every day, right?
100%. Shu gets gets things dialed. Locker room's clean. It's impeccable. He keeps things in a nice tight knit circle at Lombard Field for sure.
Hey, you said you're on Mountain Time. Where are you at right now? Just curious.
I'm in Arizona.
Okay, yeah, very nice.
Yeah, I'm about maybe 45 seconds away from the complex, so nice. Right down the street.
That's fun. Hey, Sean, anything else you wanted to add, or as we go on, anything else you want to say about the Dodgers before we get out of here?
No, man. I mean, I'm just big league team this year. I'm excited. You know, some of the moves we made this offseason, it's gonna be a treat to watch how, you know, Mark and Connor up there put the pieces together on the pitching side, watching Doc and the hitting guys up there put the lineup together every night. So it should be an exciting year for Dodger fans, hopefully, with the big boys up there. So excited to watch them kind of do their thing this year.
Sean Coyne, pitching coach in the Dodgers organization, thank you so much for joining Dodgers Daily, and hope this isn't the last time we talk.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.